as far as the Afro-American situation goes, I think he's right there. I think the Afro-Americans should be really amazed at how much has been achieved by their ancestors and who they are and so on in the face of tremendous odds. If you're an American Indian and in the same situation, or Native America, I think the situation is 100 times more bleak, whereas the Native American and Indian population has almost collapsed, if you want to call it that, in the face of what happened in this country. And I don't think anyone meant actually to do it on purpose. It was the clash of civilizations and modern or more technologically advanced society meeting a less technologically advanced society, which always causes tremendously horrific results given the nature of human beings. But when you think of what the population of the Americas were when the whites first came here, about Native Americans, what it finally became, then you see a tremendous destruction occurred, I mean, of uncalculable proportions. But if you look at the Afro-American situation, the Afro-Americans basically supplanted the Native Americans in that regard, and the Afro-American has thrived here. So regardless of the situation economically and so on, I mean, the Afro-American has an awful lot to be proud of in terms of the achievements that have occurred and the ability to withstand a situation that wasn't the most positive situation you could have envisioned. And all the successful people that have emerged out of that, particularly more recently. So again, what Baldwin is saying here, I think, is a source of something of pride, not a source of absolute negativity. And, many groups have not fared anywhere near as well. So I think the more people can make that clear to people of that cultural heritage, the happier they will be in developing their own talents and moving forward. Rather than feel the deck is totally stacked against one, I think it's better to look at it in terms of the great achievements that have occurred. Anyways, that's my own personal view of these things. I'm giving you this literature, and I feel responsible for things that are said here. And as a parent, I would never want to say things that are going to hurt my child. Anyway, let me look at this quickly before you go. Page 15. Let's give us 5 more minutes here. Let's get into this. I underwent, during the summer that I became 14, a prolonged religious crisis. I used, this is a different essay. I used the word, this is a collection of essays. I used the word religious in common arbitrary sentence, which is why we're looking at this book, because of his religious interest. Meaning I discovered God, his saints, his angels, his blazing hell, and since I had been born into this Christian world, I supposed him to exist only within the walls of the church. So he describes his situation of going through puberty as a young man who experienced the world of the church through his father and basically grew up in the church. I became during my 14th year for the first time in my life afraid of the evil within me, afraid of the evil outside of me. What I saw around me that summer in Harlem was what I'd always seen. But now, without warning, the whores, pimps, racketeers on the avenue become a personal menace. Many of my comrades were clearly headed for the avenue. My father said I was headed there too. My friends began to drink, smoke, embarked on their sexual careers. Girls only slightly older than I sang in the choir, taught in the Sunday school. Children of holy parents underwent before my eyes an incredible metamorphosis. And he describes this extremely well. Something deeper, more subtle in their eyes, their heat, the inflection of their voices, like strangers on the avenue that became in a twinkling of an eye, and utterly different, fantastically present. Matters were not helped by the fact that these holy girls seemed rather to enjoy my terrified lapses, in other words, his sexual feelings that had suddenly awakened. Yet there was something deeper in page 17, less definable, that frightened me. Anyway, he goes on to explain what's happening to his generation. And basically on page 19 he sums it up. My friends were now downtown, busy as they put it, fighting the man. They began to care less about the way they looked, the way they dressed. Presently one found them in twos, threes, in hallways, sharing bottles of wine, whiskey, talking, cursing, fighting, lost, unable to say what it was that oppressed them, except it was the man, it was the white man. And there seemed to be no way whatever to remove this cloud that stood between them and the sun. And one did not have to be very bright to realize how little one could do to change one's situation. And he describes some racialist incidents that occurs down in the heart of the city on 42nd Street when people used to go down there. What he's saying here is that at some point everyone grows up and has to go and meet the man. And for him, and that's probably true, this was the white man's world. And so to meet the man produced these terrible negative effects on all of his comrades, his male friends, his female friends. I want to also say that with regard to that most people have to meet the man, whatever color you want to make it. Growing up, facing the fact of having to make a living, my kids are still in my house, living off me if they can. I mean, meeting the outside world is a tremendous horror show for most people. So, of course, if you're Afro-American, maybe it is even worse. But nobody likes to go down and meet the man. All of us, unfortunately, have to. That's the capitalist world, and it's a pretty horrific experience people have to go through in order to do this. And if there are strikes against you or issues that make it more difficult, it makes it all that much worse. So, though he's correct, I think he doesn't appreciate, too, that everyone, unfortunately, goes through this to a certain extent. Maybe some have a less horrific time than others at it, but don't think it's just you that has to make the compromises, do what's necessary to hit the pavement and meet the man. One last point. How does he escape from the man? What does he use that is going to get him out of this situation? The crazy thing is, what he uses is the very thing he criticized his father for. It's his golden tongue. It's his religious training. It's the fact that he learned how to be a preacher when he was only a kid that launches him into a tremendously exciting career, even as a teenager, in the black churches that he encounters and is taken into, and then moves him on into the intellectual world of New York and universities and writing and things like that. And it's this training that he's had as a preacher's son that allows him to actually avoid all these things and move into this other huge universe that he finally gets into. Pick up there next time. I'll stop my countering things and try to get through this. You guys start reading it and we'll finish it up